on Agent of Fates, whereas the standard version, it's kind of a true beatdown approach, you know, with like Lifebane Zombie, Herald of Torment, and Mogi's Marauder splitting the 3-drop duties.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always found pretty tough about this deck, and we've talked about this on a couple of broadcasts, is just that they have a lot of 2s and a lot of 3s they can play, and the big question is which one is the right one. You talked about the 3s that are kind of splitting the duties here. Lifebane Zombie, Herald of Torment, with a couple copies of Mogus' Marauder. That doesn't even talk about Master of the Feast. Which ones are you supposed to play?
Well, in my opinion, not the Master of the Feasts.
No?
No, I'm not a huge fan of that guy right now. I think that the format kind of demands people play so much removal that it's just too dicey, too risky of an investment.
The 2-drop category, you know, we see 4 copies of Pain Seer, 4 copies of Spiteful Return. That means that there are no copies of Thrill Kill Assassin, no Pack Rats. So there's a lot of 2s to play here as well. It seems like Pain Seer is the one that's been left out of the shuffle a lot. A lot of people have gone towards Thrill Kill Assassin just because Death Touch Unleashed, a 2-3 will trade with a lot of things, and 3 toughness is pretty good.
Yeah, but that said, I do think Pain Seer is a little underrated. That guy matches up pretty well against the spell-heavy decks, because even if he only connects once, maybe even twice, the advantage that he provides is much appreciated against controlling decks or attrition-based black decks. Ryan Bemrose, on the other hand, GCB's opponent this round, playing a Bant control deck. It is ostensibly a blue-white control deck, but with just the tiniest little splash. I mean, you want to have those temples anyway, but he's powering 2 Kioras in order to actually win, you know? Plus he has Mistcutter Hydra in the sideboard.
Tormented Heroes, where Carleton-Barnes will begin things. You see Bemrose with just a couple of temples to start. Not much of a surprise given this deck and what it does try to do, which is go to the late game. Temple of Plenty and Temple of Mystery here.
This particular build of Bant, extremely reliant on Supreme Verdict to remove creatures. He has just, you know, outside of other Planeswalkers that can kind of hold things off a little bit, he has just 2 Last Breaths, 3 Azorius Charms, and 4 Detention Spheres for interaction beyond the Supreme Verdict. Sort of a Cyclonic Rift if, you know, if the situation's right.
A Temple of Plenty here from Bemrose. Going to put the top card to the bottom. Carleton-Barnes, you saw, just deploy 2 copies of Gnarled Scarhide. So the 1-drops in this deck are mighty powerful. We're going to try to make him even stronger here with a Harl of Triumph.
Very timely Syncopate.
Yeah, that's going to take care of that. That's going to slow down Carleton-Barnes a little bit here, but not much, as he does attack for 6, puts Bemrose down to 12, and Bemrose had better have a Supreme Verdict here, and I think it just came rolling off the top, but there is a Detention Sphere to take care of
Yeah, it
those.
doesn't have a 4th land.
Yeah. And I think the most important card that GCB played last turn was actually the Mutavault that's hanging out.
Yeah.
And now here's a Spiteful Return that will be bestowed. So a trigger from Heroic, and now an attack and a trigger from Spiteful Return. This is a pretty big turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage altogether.
Yeah, not to mention having a Mutavault behind, and if and Bemrose can't solve this with like a removal spell, or, you know, with a sorcery speed removal spell, or else the Spiteful Return will get in there again.
What's interesting here is that, you know, Kiora doesn't actually do a great job of locking this down. It stops Tormented Hero from actually dealing damage, but it doesn't stop the Spiteful Return trigger.
Right.
So, I mean, Bemrose could cast Supreme Verdict and take care of the Tormented Hero, but that would leave behind the Spiteful Return. Basically, what all this means is that Bestow is actually pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Bestow is quite effective against reactive strategies. And, you know, I mean, Silence the Believers is very underplayed in Standard right now, but Bestow is one of the many reasons. Oh, here we see GCB with another Spiteful Return to end it very quickly.
Bestowed yet again.
Yeah, but I do think that Silence the Believers is going to gain in popularity a great deal. Not just with, I mean, it's going to start with M15, but after the rotation, Silence the Believers is going to be one of the pillars of the format, and Bestow is one of the many reasons why Silence the Believers is just so good.
That and those new avatars.
The new avatars are the juiciest of Silence the Believer targets.
We'll talk about those in just a moment. We will turn our attention to the sideboards here. You have the Bant control sideboard in front of you from Ryan. What can he add in here against Mono Black?
Not a whole lot. I mean, this is not a sideboard or deck that is well set up against Mono Black aggro at all. In theory, he can play 3 Brimaz, King of Oreskes, because at least that can threaten to block. He can Banishing Light if he just really needs some more spot removal, which it's a mediocre way to have to do things, but I think that it'd be worth it. He can use Nyx Fleece Ram. Nyx Fleece Ram is not at its best against black aggro, but it is something, and he just needs cheap plays that can try to buy him a little bit of time. It's disappointing that the Nyx Fleece Ram matches up so poorly against Pain Seer or Spiteful Return or Lifebane Zombie, or Bestow in general, or Herald of Torment, or Mogi's Marauder.
Just a couple of cards.
Yeah, but the thing is that Bemrose has enough weak cards in his main deck that he's going to be going for anything remotely playable. So it's definitely going to be a real challenge.
On Gabe's side of things, he has another Lifebane Zombie, another copy of Mogi's Marauder, 3 Duress, 1 Whip of Erebos, 2 Erebos God of the Dead, 3 Dark Betrayal, 2 Doomblade, and 2 Ultimate Price. I think the cards that he can bring in here are pretty obvious in Duress, a Whip, and Erebos itself. However, I always ask this question. He's already got 4 Thoughtseize in the main deck and then 3 copies of Duress after sideboard. How many discard spells is too many?
In this matchup, I don't think you'd want like 15, 14.
Okay.
But I definitely think you would want all your Duresses and Thoughtseizes.
Okay.
Bemrose has no creatures, so the Duresses are just literally solid gold. You know, obviously he could board in some Bemrose and Nyx Fleece Ram, but you're going to be keeping your heroes' downfalls anyway. And frankly, you might just be keeping your Lifebane Zombies anyway.
Okay.
You know, they do 3 damage, and they don't get blocked by. They're not. It's not trivial to block them with like an Elspeth token or something. And the big thing though is that if you could actually end up sneaking, you know, hitting a Bemrose, or he doesn't know that he doesn't know that Ryan doesn't have Archangel of Thune or some other similar threat.
I mean, we did not play a very long first game, so didn't get to see a lot. In regards to Erebos, very quickly, I mean, it is kind of a card advantage engine, but should you be boarding in a 4-mana spell to try to recoup, or is the goal just to, you know, pick away with them, discard, and try to kill you as quickly as possible, and then the effect that Erebos provides will just be too slow?
Yeah, so that is a really good question. I actually don't super love Erebos in this matchup. I think Erebos is at his best against the black decks that are trying to kill all your creatures. Having another way, you know, it stops their life gain from like Great Merchant or whatever, but it also gives you a way to just sort of out-attrition them. The problem with relying on Erebos, God of the Dead, against Bemrose's Bant deck is that he has ways to get rid of it, and it's just really slow. There's lots of ways that GCB could have an Erebos down and not end up winning just because Bemrose has too much power from Elspeth or other planeswalkers, too much power from Sphinx's Revelation. Now, that said, it's totally fine. It's just a question of what he wants to take out, you know, because it does slow things down quite a bit. But, you know, for instance, he's not lining up to have access to Bile Blight. You know, he definitely needs to get those out of his main deck. And even Mogi's Marauder is not the most exciting. It's nice, you know, having haste obviously is a nice dimension, but it doesn't hit as hard as you would like, and you're going to necessarily have to be diluting your deck speed down a little bit to make room for the Duresses.
Bemrose will be on the play here for game number 2. Got ran over in game number 1 of round 4, which is the round we are in here in our standard open here in Portland. Senator Phillips, Patrick Chapin, bringing you guys the action. We'll see if Mono Red can win a 4th tournament in a row here on the Open Series, even though we haven't seen any of it yet on camera.
Well, that's how it always is with these red decks. They're just the dark horse.
They sneak up on you.
Yeah. It's like a Katy Perry situation. You know?
That is my least favorite Katy Perry song. I don't know how she did it. A Nyx Fleece Ram here on turn 2. Let's see if GCB has a removal spell. He's got a Spiteful Return. So Ram is obviously a hate card against aggressive decks, but we have seen, you know, better hate cards in the past. How good of a hate card do you think this is against aggressive decks, like as they line up? Because we've seen things, you know, like Core Firewalker, for example. This one doesn't seem as good as that, of course. I
mean, it's fine. It's real good against the red decks. It's, you know, medium against black, but, you know, I'd rather have it than a Core Firewalker in this matchup.
Okay.
You know, I mean, Core Firewalker obviously is just a stone cold killer against a real red deck. The Nyx Fleece Ram, quite good against red, but a little bit better against other kinds of aggro than the red, you know, than the red hate Core Firewalker would be. What's interesting is how much better the Nyx Fleece Ram is against the standard black aggro decks compared to the block black aggro decks. The block black aggro decks had access to things like Agent of Fates, sometimes even Boon of Erebos. The standard versions, their opponent's decks are too streamlined for such, such nonsense.
Mogus Marauder is going to come in. It'll make those 2 black creatures unblockable. Let's see if we're going to see a Kiora here. It's going to be a Jace, actually, and that elevator is going to go up, so that's going to slow down the beats here a little bit. This is actually working really well in Bemrose's favor, assuming he has a Supreme Verdict in hand. It's going to force GCB to continue to extend, and then Verdict can clean up everything and likely leave a Jace behind. So you have to imagine that for the control player here in Ryan, he's got to be happy with how this game's going.
Yeah, I mean, the Spiteful Return can't even put pressure on the Jace either from its extra 2 damage.
Yep.
You know, it's because of its being life loss. Now it is a losing proposition for Bemrose for GCB to be attacking Bemrose, his Planeswalker, and just every turn send all my guys into the Ram, into the Jace. You know, that's like at this point he's not even putting pressure on Bemrose's life total, and Bemrose is getting closer to the spot where he can just take over with big bombs like Elspeth.
Now it's time for a Thoughtseize, which may be a little bit late to the party. You see a Temple of Enlightenment, a Temple of Mystery, and then 2 copies of Supreme Verdict. So one of those is going to bite the dust. But
yeah, he wisely chooses the foil.
yeah, got to get that out of here. It's bad for coverage, too. It's hard to read. GCB going to write down those 3 cards. Temple's, of course, doing a fantastic job of saving things around Thoughtseize by leaving them on top of the deck. This is kind of the concern, I think, with discard spells. Of course, they're powerful, but they can show up at the wrong time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yep, they are high variance.
Mutavaulch looks like it's going to go active. Time for Nyx Fleece Ram to get its block on. So some damage will get pushed through here, but not a ton. The combination of Jace and Nyx Fleece Ram looks like it's going to be pretty difficult for Carleton-Barnes to beat. But if a Supreme Verdict does show up, there are 2 Mutavaults back there hanging out for GCB, so not all is lost. Ryan's going to take down here, so there's an Attention Sphere, along with a Temple of Plenty and a Sphinx's Revelation.
Pretty big reveal here.
Could see Rev by itself. We'll see how Carleton-Barnes wants to split these up.
It's interesting, the decision to Jace down. You know, like Ryan is definitely saying, I'm not planning on verdicting anytime soon. I'm just going to ride this out.
So D-Sphere Versus is the split for GCB. So not scared of giving away Revelation plus a land here at this point. And Bemrose will let the 2 cards go to the bottom and the Detention Sphere go to the grip. There's a Temple of Mystery, top card. We'll see where that chooses to go in just a moment. That's going to stay on top right now, it looks like.
Still cocked sideways, so you never know.
Scrying is tough, but it's a great ability to have back in Magic. Easily one of my favorites.
Oh, you have to decide whether or not to keep your top card? Scry me a river.
Yeah. That will go to the bottom, maybe. Yes, it looks like it will finally go to the bottom.
Definitely maybe.
Yeah. Now here's a D-Sphere. Seems like Spiteful Return is a pretty juicy target there. That card's causing some problems, so that's going to go away. Back to GCB we go. He'll untap those lands along with the Mogus' Marauder. I'll take a draw here.
So now GCB has an opportunity to kill Jace. He'll surely take it, right?
I have to imagine he will. You know your opponent's hand for the most part. I think you're working with almost perfect information right now because of the Thoughtseize last turn. There might be one mystery card hanging out in the hand there for Ryan, but you can make a pretty educated decision on how you want the rest of this game to go.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like that Jace was the single biggest problem facing Gabe, and having an opportunity to get rid of it without even having to trade any cards, you know, just take a turn off. He's not going to find too much better of a shot than that.
There might be some interest here in Gabe, because I know he has a Herald of Torment in his hand. You can see the Fifth Swamp of bestowing on a Mogus Marauder and taking it out that way.
Totally
Maybe.
reasonable. No, that's totally reasonable. I think as long as you kill Jace here.
It looks like that's what he's going to do. So.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and there goes Jace. So this looks to be a pretty productive turn here for Gabe.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a lot going for him now, too. Particularly since the Bestow beats are not particularly vulnerable to Supreme Verdict.
That's the one thing you got to like about this mono black deck, right? That your deck is pretty good against mass removal because of Bestow. And you can reload it pretty quickly, and of course, there's Mutavault out there as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I only get to like one thing about it, I think it's the Thoughtseize and the Hero's Downfall.
Okay.
But if there's two, it's the resilience against sweepers because of the ability to stack all your threats onto one guy and then spread them back out again if they have a sweeper.
And you see just how poor Supreme Verdict is there, but Bemrose has to cast it. And again, that's some of the appeal of playing mono black aggro. Carleton-Barnes able to reload here pretty easily. Drew another Mutavault for the turn. Now we've got a Spiteful Return being bestowed on Herald of Torment, and all of a sudden, a game that was looking pretty difficult for Carleton-Barnes isn't looking very difficult at all.
Yeah, Ryan, being able to take out Ryan's Jace was just about the best thing that he could possibly hope for.
All of a sudden, GCP takes 8. Excuse me, GCP deals 8. Bemrose goes down to 8, and just has to extend the hand.
Brutal.
Gabe Carleton-Barnes moves on to 4-0 with mono black aggro, defeating Ryan Bemrose 2-0 in 2 pretty one-sided games, all things being honest.
Yeah, I think that what really, the turning point there was definitely that Jace turn. Plus, honestly, Ryan just really needed a Sphinx's Revelation. He didn't have any tools to work with, and so being able to rev for a few cards would give him a shot to actually try to deal with all the different threats that GCB was throwing in his general direction.
Congratulations to GCB, moving on to 4-0. I'm sure we'll see more of him playing mono black aggro today. But while we do wait to figure out what our next match is going to be,